writing sewed me back into my body. Writing is what sews me back into my physical self. So again, this notion of writing is a form of stitching that, which I think really makes sense, right down to notions of poetry and line. You know, it's almost like, and when I think about that, I think of, I remember my grandmother always saying to me, I'd want to take a long piece of thread, because then I'd only have to put it through the needle once. And she'd be always saying, no, you want a short piece of thread, because otherwise it's going to knot itself. Yes. So you've got to keep your thread short. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you've got to go through that eye of the needle many times, because you don't want too long a thread. It's kind of it just makes me start thinking about lengths of lines in poetry.
Oh, for sure.
And just and again, sanity, at what point do we start getting those knots happening?
Yeah. Which is part of what
tasks are we avoiding that enable us that make us take risks we shouldn't?
Too long a thread,
because we don't want to have to go through the eye of the needle again.
Yeah, and the reports are short threads, which is
threads.
I find lately I have not read a lot of fiction because the yawning task.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I found that really pulled me along with your book as well. Was they were short pieces that folded in on each other along the way, and then another narrative would pick up here, and I found that a really amazing way to, as a reader, follow the work.
And what I'm hoping is they echo off each other, that there's as much happening between each report as there is, as there is within each one.
So do you actually work at the Jarvis branch?
I work part-time at the branch that's at southwest corner of Parliament and Gerrard. So it's right in Regent Park.
Wow.
So it's very neat. So I work part-time. And again, it's like you going to do your baking. It's kind of like a perfect antidote to the really, sitting at home for years writing stuff, wondering whether it's ever going to mean anything to anybody. And then you go out there and, someone wants a Thai cookbook. Here you are, here's your Thai cookbook. Or yesterday I was helping a man, an old guy who was on subsidized housing. He had to hand his forms in to prove that his income hadn't increased or he'd lose his apartment. It was due the next day. He didn't have the form. They wanted like some income assessment notice from 2008 from the income tax department. He didn't have it. He couldn't phone them because he was deaf. He was just caught in this circle. So I ended up on the phone, calling Toronto Housing Forum, then calling the tax department, and it was Kafka-like. They're on the, can I speak to him? Yes, here he is. Well, I can't speak to him, he can't hear me. Well, yes, I get that point. But no, you're not authorized to request this form on his behalf. Even though he's saying into the phone, let this lady do whatever she needs to do for me. Like, a nightmare. And finally we got it resolved. So it takes me out of that writer's world into something much more concrete, much more solid, much more day-to-day, much more practical. Yeah.
And human,
human.
I feel the same way about hair. I hate hair a lot.
Yeah.
I won't lie.
Well, because again,
it
constrains you.
What have I done? I have to bake muffins and talk to Jane in the wheelchair. Because I have all kinds of characters that, of course, come in here too.
Of course.
And it's messy. Like, really, at the end of the day, up inside my head is a different kind of messy, but it's one that I know how to categorize a little bit. Whereas this is like, an open portal. I always call this place a bit of a portal. It's a portal into an interface with other human beings.
And like your job, baking, doing all these mundane tasks, cleaning the counters, setting the stuff, and half of what I'm doing is checking books in, checking books out, unpacking books, these very mundane physical actions, but it's like washing dishes. It's very necessary.
It is.
It's very necessary, and we keep trying to remove those
back
from
to
our
mantra,
life.
back to
we keep
Buddhism.
trying to get rid of those activities. Get a machine to do it for you. Like right now, we're about to bring in machines where people will be able to check out their own books.
Wow.
That's going to shift everything.
Yeah.
The conversations that you have over that desk, half of them are not going to happen anymore because someone comes and just automatically checks their own book out.
So interesting, that idea of the mundane. I've written a lot about that myself, actually. Like a fascination with, I hate it.
Yeah.
I do. But so necessary. Like, so the bomb because I live in my head so much that it's so the right piece for me.
Yeah.
And when we built this place, when we came out and we opened it, I had my studio in the back. for a little while. It didn't work out so well. I moved it upstairs, but I was very depressed. Like when I first opened here, I think I was so exhausted, and also like I just think that things aren't ever what they are. Also, like you go, I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to be like this, but really it was like something completely different. There was a lot of work and a lot of mundane tasks and a lot of readjusting and trying to understand and causing a lot of. I mean, for me, depression is just not meeting reality well and feeling that kind of internalization of defeat or disdain.
And it's that dissonance between the idea you had in your head of what reality was going to be and what reality is, and somehow we feel that we've failed to make reality what it should be. And if you can get rid of that feeling of failure, then it's gone. Louise Gluck has this wonderful poem about these two sisters putting on nail polish, and they're constantly looking at the color in the bottle and the color on their nail and going, why can't I get this to match?
Exactly.
And they're waiting for their life to begin.
Yeah.
As though their real life will begin when the color on their nail matches the color in the bottle.
Yes.
And it's never going to happen.
No, it was really not happening here for me. And I found there was one thing, and it got really serious. I've struggled in my life with lots of other things, like addiction and depression and things that I've overcome in different ways, but the depression of that interface not feeling like it was going to ever match was a place, and I think coming out of 17-hour days hauling plaster.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, I was just in this really place of despair, and my book had just finished being edited, so there wasn't anything holding me other than trying to, and then this place was chaos, just trying to figure out what systems.
And finishing your book's a big part.
It is huge.
That's a big, talking about postpartum depression. It's like this, okay, it's come to an end. What now? You've come to the end of the chess game.
Yeah.
That was your chess game, and now
and the renovation finished right at the same time, and then this place opened, and I was standing here going, so now fucking what, right? Like, what? And it all culminated in me going into the back room, and it was filthy and dusty, and things from the restaurant were piled in it, and it was neglected. And I have a Buddha statue in there, and the first thought I had was dust it. And then from there, I set up an altar, and from there, I dusted a corner, and from there, became a meditation on the mundane, and I kind of knew in a weird way that I couldn't leave there until I had touched every place and changed the energy of that being static, and that it had everything to do with the physical, with the everyday. And it was an incredibly life-changing experience for me, actually, because I really started to understand that the only way through something is through it, literally, physically, And that's when I started baking, actually. It was right after that experience. And this idea that you either have to hold on to the structures that you have and work within them, even if you spill open here and there. But it's really important to show up every day in the recipe or in the incident report or in the whatever. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it kind of is. It is the fix for falling over the edge.
But if you just keep showing up every day, then something will happen. Yeah, there's my husband's Jewish, non-practicing, non-believing Jew, but he also says there's something in there where the notion of these, you're meant to do certain things even if you don't believe in them, because the act of doing them will take you to a place that you want to get to. So even if you don't believe in doing this, do it anyway, because it will take you where you're meant to get to.
Right.
Which is kind of similar. When you're in that state of depression, you don't believe this is going to help you in any way.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just turn up every day. That's a good way to put it. I'll hold on to that next time I'm in a really black place.
Yeah, no.
Turn up every day.
And it felt like the incident reports were about that. Like it's about, I keep doing this.
And she wakes, in the morning, you get on your bicycle, you go to work, there's a prescribed route, you follow it.
Yeah.
And that's the positive element of those constraints.
Yes. And I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I've had moments in my life where I didn't do any other thing other than have time to do whatever creative endeavor I want to do. And I fall apart. Like, I suck at it. I wind up on the couch watching Oprah at 4:30.
You're much better trying
freaking
to
out.
squeeze it in around the constraints.
Yes, absolutely. It's somehow they feed it properly. I don't know if you feel the same
absolutely.
way. But